Hi guys, I'm Dr. Konecki. Welcome to my YouTube channel. If you don't know me, I'm a junior doctor, well now resident doctor in the UK, specifically in England. I work in the Somerset area. A topic that, you know, is kind of taboo, as in you hear about it, but you don't really talk about it to others, especially in the workplace, and at least in my experience in the NHS, is really burnout. And the hard part about burnout is that it's poorly understood in the general sense of what it really is. Most people have a general understanding that burnout is, well, you just can't work more, you're very tired, and that's that, and well, be resilient. And while there is some truth to that, I think does it is deeper than just that. I think they need to take it more seriously. So let's talk about it. So first of all, what is burnout? So if you look up burnout on Google now with the AI tools, it will tell you literally. I'll just read it off my tablet here. You'll see that if you put it on Google with the AI tools, now I've got it here. Burnout is a state of physical and emotional exhaustion that can occur due to long-term stress at work or from working in a draining role for a long time. The term was coined in the 1970s by American psychologist Herbert Freudenberger. Because if you haven't dealt with burnout in the first place, it will be very hard to understand what it's like until you get there. So for most people watching this video, I fully expect that when you come across this video, it'll be because, well, you're probably burnt out, and not because, well, you're trying to prevent burnout. That's, I think, the vast minority of people. If you're trying to prevent it, most people, they look up videos like this because, well, now they have this problem. So we've defined what burnout is, but also and how it happens. But what is it really? Because the definition is you work long hours or something very tiring for a long enough duration where you feel physically and emotionally exhausted. Sure. Okay. That's one side of it. And then we have to also realize that this is not a medical diagnosis. This is more of a, let's say, work phenomenon. And that's okay. And that doesn't mean it's not real. It's really based on physical exhaustion first. At least in my experience, that then leads to the emotional deficit that you almost will inevitably have, and probably is the underlying way to know that you are burnt out, because it ends in the emotional exhaustion. So my first and hopefully last experience with burnout was when I was in my FY2 year of my foundation training, and it was during my obstetrics and gynecology rotation. And at that time, I was working at a hospital, which I won't name the hospital, but I was working in a specific hospital that's quite renowned in general, and I mean, the training was absolutely great. There's no questions asked, right? The problem with that specific rotation in obstetrics and gynecology was that every single day that you would work would, instead of being a 9 to 5, which is 8 hours, right? And then having on calls that can last up to, let's say, 10 or 12, 13 hours. But the regular being 8-hour shifts daily, right? Everyone's got on calls as doctors. In obstetrics and gynecology, at that specific hospital, the minimum day was working from 8 till 6 p.m., which would mean that the minimum kind of daily shift time-wise would be 10 hours, right, instead of 8. Makes a huge difference, especially when it's on your daily schedule. So that's the regular day. It was 10 hours long, minimum. And then the on-call shifts, which were quite common still, were 13 hours apiece, with usually 2 to 3 days in a row, or with that being during the day, or even or during the night, right? So I was working pretty significant hours, and at least for the UK, that's not very normal. Those kind of hours. I know that can be more normal with the US, and if you look at their numbers, you're gonna see that a lot of people are burnt out, and well, it just shows in the stats and the general sentiment in the US. At that time, the problem that I was experiencing was I've never dealt with burnout before. At least I hadn't realized it yet. I might have already once in medical school, but at that time, truly, it was the first time while in my working life that I was experiencing burnout. Now, how did I come to the realization that this might be burnout? The first thing that, for me, triggered the thought was I just don't care anymore. I was going to work daily and thinking to myself, I've got to do this, and that's fine, and I know there's a light at the end of the tunnel, but I'm just exhausted. I just don't care anymore, and I'm physically and emotionally drained. And then the fact that I even thought the word burnout as a possibility, I later found out in hindsight was the first kind of moment that was probably the beginning of burnout. And I was right, thinking about it and reflecting about it later on. Now, in that moment, I looked into burnout. I thought to myself, well, I need to figure this out because I can't have this going on. I need to work. I need to finish my training, because it's just too important. And that was my sentiment at that time. Now, going into it, the problem with burnout is you don't really realize it until it's already happened, unless it's already happened to you once. And it essentially sneaks up on you. And the example, kind of to differentiate what is tiring work versus burnout, is you'll do a lot of hard things in life that are grueling, they're tiresome, you just want to be done with it, but you get to the end of it and then you recover, right? And then you just keep going with the next thing and the next thing. And usually that's most of life, and it's okay. Normally, we can recover with each event enough where we're thinking to ourselves, okay, I'm fine enough to go to the next thing. In burnout, you go through that difficult time, and then you may have a hard time to bounce back or recover from that event. And I mean that in the physical sense and partially emotional sense when you're going through it. So let's say you have a deadline for a presentation on top of everything else that you've got going on in your life, or you have to write a research paper. That might be a better one. And you've got your deadline and you're going through it and you're putting this above everything else. You're not really prioritizing your sleep, how you're eating. If you need to exercise a bit more, which I think most people do, you're not prioritizing that. And this is a common thing for most people. Most people, they do have to dip into prioritizing those tasks more than other things during short periods of time. But then we slowly start to find the more and more we have similar kind of episodes of that, we start to not be able to come back from that, and it's harder and harder every single time until our bodies metaphorically crack and we just cannot recover anymore. And then it hits you that you feel kind of hopeless because you're so exhausted, and you have to keep going, right? Because life doesn't stop. Your job doesn't stop. You have to keep going. And then it sinks in that you're exhausted, and now it starts to affect your emotional side. You can be more cranky, more upset with people, really distant with people. You stop caring about people close to you, and especially about work. Although you know it's important, you know your work life, and your family life, and your personal life is important, but you just, even knowing it's important, you don't care. You keep up appearances, but inside, you feel kind of dead. You feel like a ghost in a shell of yourself. So while it does feel gloomy and kind of hopeless and you feel desperate in those moments, the good news is that there is a fix and there is a way to then make sure it doesn't happen again. And especially when you know that you have to keep going. If you do any research on burnout, you'll find that, oh, you should go on a vacation and that'll sort all your problems. And to an extent, that's absolutely true. But again, I mean, you know, burnout happens on a kind of no moment's notice, or let's say within a week or two, right? Because that's just it's broken us. The physical exhaustion has broken us, and it kind of happens on on that short notice, and and then suddenly, we still have obviously work. We can't just go on holiday or vacation, however you want to call it, just like that. We have to keep working. We have to keep going, right? That's life. But we're in this state. So what do we do now? The good news is there is a way, and it's more simple than I think most people give it credit, because most people, well, I'll put it this way. Most people think, oh, you need to rest. Right. But what kind of rest? So it's not rest that, you know, resting where you're spending time, I don't know, watching a movie, playing games, spending time with friends, family. No, that's more of a pastime and having fun, but not actual rest. You need physical rest. And what I mean by that is you need to make sure that you're sleeping. You need to make sure that you're getting enough sleep for your body. I mean, average is 8. That's what the magical number is that everyone knows about. Everyone, I think, in general, should, at least when you're in this burnout episode, focus on reaching those 8 hours a night and prioritizing your sleep. And if you need to go to bed early to be able to do that, to hit the 8 hours, then you must do that, because otherwise life will be very hard if you don't do that. Especially when you are in the thick of it. The other thing is, especially then when you're feeling at your worst, there is no more important time to make sure that the things that you're putting into your body, food, drink, is good quality. You cannot be eating junk food and drinking fizzy drink soda when you're in that state. It's the easy thing to get some Uber Eats or to get some DoorDash wherever you are, and to order in food. You can order like good quality food. I mean, it's not like everything on those kind of sites is junk food, but no, like McDonald's, no Burger King, no KFC. It's just, that's junk you're putting into your body at a time when your body needs better from you. And whether that's you cooking for yourself, or let's say even ordering it, something more expensive, but you need to make sure that you're treating your body well, you're eating well, you're eating vegetables, real meat. You're getting potatoes or pasta or anything of those, but you're getting a full kind of whole meal and not just burgers and fries or chicken wings. It's so important. And you need to be drinking water. You can't overhydrate because there's a thing called water toxicity, but you need to make sure that you're hydrating your body so that that water can circulate in your blood, that blood can flow, rejuvenate your body, and clean up all the toxins and the crap found everywhere in your body. It's so important, especially at that time, to avoid any soda/fizzy drinks, to avoid any sugary drinks like Powerade, Gatorade, Lucozade. It's really important to avoid any of that. It is especially at that time that you need to focus just on drinking water. Coffee can be fine, but in low amounts, because coffee blocks adenosine from attaching to its receptors, which adenosine is this thing that our body produces to let our bodies know that it's tired, and then adenosine connects to its receptors, and coffee will block those adenosine molecules to attaching to that receptor that they're usually going to, making us feel a bit more awake. Now, while that can be good for most days, and I think you may still feel you need it function correctly during those burnout episodes, I do think, especially then, it's good to cut down a little bit on the coffee, okay? Because coffee, it also is a diuretic. It takes a hit on your body, and you feel that, especially if you're chronically drinking coffee, you really start to feel the effects of sleep deprivation because you think coffee can fix it, which it can't. Can't fix sleep deprivation with coffee. Coffee only awakens you a little bit until a certain point where you need true sleep, where coffee is no substitute for sleep. So what I mentioned is make sure you're sleeping that 8 hours a night. Make sure you're eating well. Make sure you're hydrating well. Water, coffee, a little bit, not a lot. Okay, let's say half a cup to 1 cup max per day. That's what I mean by a little bit. Nothing more than that in the morning. Nothing after the initial morning coffee. Right. Now that's the physical side, especially when you're in the thick of it. If you've dealt with the physical side, then the emotional side is left. So the thing is with the emotional side, when you're physically deprived of all these things, you're naturally going to be more irritated. You're naturally going to feel worse, all right, and that is inevitably going to affect your emotions as well. Okay, so if you've dealt with the physical side first, it will actually already be fixing in simultaneously your emotional problems tied in with that as well. Now, once you've fixed and continue fixing the physical side, and you've already through that fixed some of your emotional problems, there will probably still be some emotions left that you need to deal with. And this is going to be like the common stuff you hear when you need to, especially if you're living alone. This is so important. It's like, think about like COVID times. Especially if you're isolating alone, it can be pretty hard, right? Being alone in that isolation. And it's not really different if you're not interacting with people that are close to you, or you need someone close to you and you're not able to interact with them for a long enough period of time. It's going to feel similar to that in this state. So I strongly urge you, once you've started sorting the physical side, then start dealing with the emotional side too. Speak to a family member, to your very close significant other, to a very close friend, and just air out your dirty laundry. When you do this, it really is like opening a window into your mind and just getting rid of all the crap that has been stuck in your emotional litter box. Those are the things you do to fix burnout. And like I said at the beginning, you could go on a vacation, on a holiday. But it's the real world, and you can't really just go on a holiday on a moment's notice. It's just not something that's realistic. But nonetheless, like, these things need to be dealt with appropriately. Otherwise, life will be hard and may go to darker places that it never should have in the first place if we were taking care of ourselves appropriately, right? Now we've sorted out how to deal with burnout. Now, what about the prevention of it so it doesn't happen again? So, a lot of this, also actually the exact same things that you use to fix burnout is how you prevent burnout in the first place. If you were sleeping well, and I think everyone should figure out what their minimum amount of sleep is to feel well physically. I think everyone should figure that out first, their minimum, and I think it varies from person to person. For me personally, it's 6 hours as the bare minimum I need to sleep to feel normal and to function mentally well and to be able to work at a proficient level. So the sleep is important. The eating well all round is important. You can't just be eating junk all the time. There is a reason for all of this. Focus on water, on hydration. You can, of course, drink what you want, but you need to make so that can include the fizzy drinks, can include the coffee, the tea, the all the stuff that is not water, right? That is all not classically good for you. You can drink all of those that you want. Alcohol, but there needs to be a focus on making sure that your body is feeling well with food and water. Okay. And you cannot ignore your emotional side too. That is something that may classically be harder for men to do. However, it's just as equally as important as taking care of the physical side as well. Those are really the only ways to avoid burnout and to fix burnout. And all of these suggestions, these are all based on my personal experience with burnout, but I feel nowadays great, and moving forward, achieving my goals. I don't have to feel terrible while doing it, and I don't think that should be the norm. I think you should be able to feel healthy and well while working hard and achieving your goals. It shouldn't be that you have to exchange or substitute your health well for an achievement. I think it's nonsense, and it should not be the norm. And I don't think it should be I don't think it should be a societal norm, and I don't think you should normalize it for yourself. I think in itself it is a toxic thing to do, and you will not get very far. You will actually get so much farther if you just take care of yourself like you were meant to in the first place. And actually, you will, I can guarantee this, you will be happier all round. No questions asked. So all of these things, all of these suggestions from me, they're really about actually just paying attention to your physical needs and your emotional needs. You know when you need to sleep, right? You know when you need to eat better, and you know when you need to talk to someone. You do. You need to listen to that little inner voice that says those things, and take it seriously, because you can only put it off for so long before you crack. So if you got any value from this video, I really hope that you did, because burnout is a serious and kind of under talked about topic, and a little poorly understood, and I think there's a little bit of a stigma on it in our workplace, in life nowadays, because people don't really talk as much about the hard parts of life as they should, because there's such a focus on achievement in our world. And while the focus on achievement in our world is, I think, great, because how we keep moving forward, we won't get very far if we don't focus on the things that mattered in the first place, that allowed us to get there, if we don't maintain it. If you got any value from this video and you have any thoughts, please leave a comment, subscribe, watch one of the other videos. I hope it really could help you, and it did help you, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Stay healthy, stay strong, keep going. You're gonna get there.